After you get compliance reviewed is when you'll receive a safety rating, and that's the only time you're going to get one. There are some instances where if the auditor wasn't able to completely conduct the investigation, they may not assign you a rating, so they'll just leave you as you'll just be not unrated, an unrated carrier. But um, the more prepared you are and the more um, compliant you are, then obviously the better that your rating is going to be, which is going to be based on the degree of compliance with safety fitness standard, meaning when they're looking at those safety management controls you have in place at the time they come do your audit, they want to see if what you have in place is acceptable for um, the problem that generated the reason that they're doing your compliance review anyway. Remember, it's always best to take the proactive measures to correct the problem you already have, which is what generated the intervention in the first place. The more you have prepared, the better off you're going to have the outcome of getting a satisfactory rating, which means that the controls you have in place right now are sufficient to ensure that you're complying despite the fact that you already had an identifiable problem. And the what I always use the example with is your maintenance. Say you have you're a company that just gets numerous inspections done because you have a lot of vehicles on the road. The more inspections you have, the more likely you're going to have higher maintenance violations from whatever they find. At some point, that number could get high enough to where it would generate a compliance review. And when they come do your audit, that's going to be the focus, is to identify what has been causing this issue that caused your maintenance score to go above the threshold. What they want to see at that time is the safety management controls you have implemented, are they acceptable enough to correct the problem moving forward? So even though you have a compliance review done, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are not, that you don't have stuff in place to comply. They just go to check, are they sufficient enough to correct that problem that generated your review in the first place. Under satisfactory, you'll get conditional. This is kind of in between, where you're not doing so great where you're satisfactory, but you're not doing so bad that they need to take the measures to start issuing your company an out of service order. So in this case, you have stuff in place. It's just not sufficient enough. You have corrections that you need to implement, or you have corrective actions you need to take. It's kind of like if let's say you're in grade school and you get a C, right? Like you're not failing, but you have improvements to make to try to get you to a B or an A. And that's what conditional is. Sometimes too, when you get a conditional rating, that also at times is accompanied by a civil penalty. So just be aware that there could also be a case where you have to pay a fine in addition to having to deal with the fact that you're going to be rated conditional, which affects some of your external operation, like when you're coming up for your insurance renewal. That might be a point where instead of getting a lower premium or not getting as high of a raise of a premium, they're gonna put a larger amount on you, because now they understand what it means for you to be rated conditional. It also affects your ability to get new contracts or MSAs or whatever with new clients, right? It's all public data that they'd be able to see. So that's why you want to be as prepared for the audit as you can, to make sure that you're not going to receive a conditional, and especially not receive an unsatisfactory, which is the lowest rating you can receive. At this point, what they've determined is whatever measures you have are inadequate, and they're going to start the process of issuing your company an out of service order, because at this point you're not complying, and you're not even to an acceptable level where they can continue, where they will let you continue operating. With a conditional rating, you're going to have that rating, but at least you're going to stay operational. They're going to let you continue operating. With unsatisfactory, that's at the point where not only are they going to issue you a fine, but now they're also going to start the process to revoke your USDOT number. And in that case, the only measures you have to take is that in those next 45 or 60 days, you have to correct all the problems. You have to submit your corrective actions to make sure that they allow you to continue to operate. However, you're still going to remain with an unsatisfactory rating. At this point, if you're unsatisfactory, that's really going to affect your ability to not only, number one, renew your insurance policy, but to get contracts or whatever else, right? And another factor that this could also affect is when it comes to litigation, right? If I'm an attorney that's suing your company, and I run your SMS at the time of this incident, and it showcases that you have an unsatisfactory rating, you're right, I'm going to use that against you, because that's going to help me prove to the jury or the judge or whoever's presiding or listening or who's going to make the ruling that you're an unsatisfactory company. And it's no wonder that this happened, because you're not complying, and you got reviewed by auditors, and you're not complying. You're not taking the measures that you need to take to make sure that you're complying with the regulations. So that's why you want to stay on top of it. And then finally, you could just have not rated. Again, this isn't a negative. This isn't a negative rating to have. It just means that you just have either, number one, never been compliance reviewed, which to me looks better, right? Because the only way you can receive a rating is when you've been compliance reviewed. When you get compliance reviewed, I explained that in the other videos, that when things are going bad in your company. So not rated doesn't mean anything bad. It just means you haven't been assigned a rating. So that's where you'd want to make sure that before you get compliance reviewed, that you have all your stuff in place, so that you're more likely to get a satisfactory rating after you get your compliance review done.